Hey there, this is Bruce with Z Group Energy. We are an Arizona geothermal energy innovator, and I'd like to take this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about some alternative energies, just a real brief discussion, and also provide a brief history of geothermal energy. Now, I'm going to have to do a little coffee for this. Geothermal energy is heat energy derived from the Earth's core, and it's a renewable resource as defined by the Pacific Northwest Electric Power Planning and Conservation Act of 1980. There's a mouthful. And the National Energy Policy Act of 1992. And it's estimated by the U.S. geothermal industry for the Renewable Energy Task Force in 1997 as equivalent to about 42 million megawatts of electrical power. Well, say power. Geothermal energy, that would be Earth's core energy, competently mined and shared, is completely renewable and 100% sustainable for the millions of years we might imagine Earth's core to remain hot. Now, the potential for extracting and utilizing thermal energy found beneath the Earth's lithospheric crust and mantle, sometimes referred to as heat mining, for direct use or for generation of electricity is a subject of significant interest. If historic extraction challenges are overcome, employing innovative technology, then heat mining can efficiently, more cost effectively, and safely be employed, in which case geothermal resources would represent a nearly inexhaustible source of non-fossil fuel, non-CO2 emitting, non-nuclear waste producing, non-polluting fuel. How cool is that? Now, the term heat mining is usually constrained in the context of harvesting Earth's heat at a maximum extraction rate not to exceed the Earth's localized ability to replenish the heat, therefore never depleting the source. It should be noted that many, if not most other so-called green or clean alternative technologies have practical limitations in terms of availability, efficiency, and unit cost. Electrically powered vehicles, for example, currently require recharging via electricity generated by fossil or nuclear fuel, and therefore pollution is not eliminated. And if this is employed on a large scale, as many of us would like to see, demand will drive the cost of electricity to unreasonable levels given current technological limitations. This is something we need to fix. Hybrid vehicles able to independently produce their own electricity using natural gas, gasoline, or diesel fuel also contribute to pollution. Now, these electric vehicles all have a bright future. I think most of us are excited about it, but their potential cannot be realized until we develop new, more viable technologies for electricity generation. We see large-scale implementation of solar collector farms and wind turbine fields. These are built at significant cost. They operate at low efficiency levels, exerting their own environmental impacts, which at this point aren't even fully determined. Now, many, if not most people, don't really care to see large solar farms or wind turbines near their homes, particularly when the wind turbines aren't maintained, they're not even turning, and they produce nothing. Additionally, there's the daily unreliability in that wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, does it? Hydrogen-powered vehicles are an exciting alternative, but at present the large volume of fuel storage required per vehicle and the lack of refueling stations makes them a little bit impractical, but we'll see what happens with those in the future. Natural gas-powered vehicles are a good stopgap. We're starting to see those, but natural gas is not renewable. The cost rises over time, and emissions contribute to so-called greenhouse gases, don't they? A vehicular fueling distribution network would also have to be created for natural gas, as it doesn't presently exist. Ethanol fuels on any large scale are, quite frankly, people, an environmental and economic disaster worse than gasoline or diesel fuel. Ethanol production is causing food shortages already, and it's increasing food costs, and this is getting worse as ethanol production is increased. Ethanol, by the time it's harvested, refined, and used, contributes more greenhouse emissions to our atmosphere than gasoline or diesel fuel, while simultaneously increasing food costs. It's a non-starter. Historically, utilization of geothermal energy in North America goes back about 10,000 years, roughly coincident with the first agricultural revolution that began about 12,000 years ago. The Paleo Indians were known to use geothermal hot springs for warmth, cooking, and cleaning by direct use. More recently, geothermal energy has been utilized for many things: food processing, producing electricity, and for heating buildings, streets, sidewalks, and so forth. Now, regarding electricity generation, the first sizable geothermal electricity generating plant, a dry stream plant, was constructed in Larderello, Italy in 1904, and that plant is still operational today. Now, the first U.S. commercial geothermal power plant, called the Geysers in Northern California, up north of San Francisco, began operation in the 1960s. And the Geysers geothermal system today is considered to be the largest single renewable energy source in the world. The United States currently adds about 3,000 megawatts of electricity to the national grid annually via geothermal means. That's a small portion of annual U.S. electricity production. Now, uncertainty regarding availability, renewability, and cost of conventional fossil fuels, along with potential thermal and environmental pollution, in conjunction, of course, with national security concerns, makes electricity production using geothermal heat an attractive alternative. The geothermal option has not, unfortunately, been without its own issues and costs. Generally speaking, the temperature of Earth's crust, the lithosphere, increases with depth at an average rate of about 3 degrees centigrade per 100 meters of vertical depth, though in most locations this ratio doesn't really hold until depths are sufficient to stabilize temperatures. In Iceland, for example, where a lot of geothermal energy is produced, this depth appears to be about 3,500 meters. Now, harnessing this heat energy at useful temperatures, say higher than 150 degrees centigrade as a minimum, under normal crust conditions, requires drilling to great depths at investment costs, rendering it economically undesirable. There are, however, geographic regions, such as Iceland or up near the geysers, that have pronounced geologic, or more importantly, geothermal anomalies. These provide access to usefully high temperatures at relatively shallow depth. Now, heat energy can be mined in these areas at a significantly reduced cost if it can be done in an appropriate and safe manner. Iceland is such a location where the Iceland Deep Drilling Project, IDDP is the acronym, was initiated at the 2000 World Geothermal Congress. IDDP drilling is taking place along what they call a rifted plate margin on a mid-ocean ridge. These ridges have been geothermally productive areas, and it's a place where geothermal shows up. Now, serving as a modern-day example, Iceland's Deep Drilling Project, the first phase of which is IDDP-1, is harvesting 30 kilograms per second of heated geothermal brine at 330 degrees centigrade, 165 bars of pressure, yielding 20 megawatts of power per geothermal well. This is pretty impressive, and in electrical energy terms, this would be 20 megawatt hours of electricity provided every 60 minutes per well. More interestingly, Iceland's deep drilling project phase 2, that's IDDP2, in January of 2017, drilled in just 168 days at Reykjanes. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Reykjanes. Sorry about that. I think it's pronounced Reykjanes. Anyway, in southwestern Iceland, they drilled to a depth of 4,659 meters, reaching a temperature of 426 degrees centigrade, 340 bars of pressure. Production testing won't be complete on this well until sometime in 2018, so we're going to have to wait to get the good news from Iceland, and it is good news. Now, Iceland's work is exciting because the properties of water reach a singularity at water's critical temperature of 374 degrees centigrade and 221 bars pressure, where aqueous fluid is no longer a liquid nor a gas, and there is no boundary layer. For example, if you have a pot full of water on the stove and you're heating it, you've got the liquid water in the pot. The surface of the water is a boundary layer, if you will, and if you heat that water to boiling, above the boundary layer, it will flash to a vapor, won't it? It'll flash to steam. A supercritical fluid doesn't have a boundary layer like that, okay? And this allows fine tuning of temperature and pressure for, in our case, turbine-related equipment, rendering plant operations more easily controlled and more efficient. Now, more significantly, aqueous fluids maintained above critical temperatures can provide more than 5 times the power-producing potential of the same fluid at, for example, a lower temperature of, say, 225 degrees centigrade. Now, you may recall water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. That's about 212 degrees Fahrenheit near sea level, anyway. So these temperatures we're talking about are very, very hot. IDDP modeling suggests that a supercritical geothermal well may provide 10 times the power output of one of today's conventional geothermal wells. So this is very exciting stuff. It's something that Z Group Energy is very interested in following up on with our closed system technology. Now, employing current relevant art forms in the patent business, they talk about art forms, okay? It's a technology. But employing current technology in geothermal heat energy, we typically extract the heat energy by pumping hot brines directly from an underground geothermal reservoir in hot dry rock, HDR, by pumping extraneous water under high pressure through the hot rock, creating or augmenting a below ground reservoir. This involves fully opening the existing rock fractures, the cracks in the rock, to maximize the flow through the permeable strata, that's the cracks, okay? It may also involve fracturing the rock. We call it fracking, and usually we think of fracking relative to oil and natural gas production, but fracking is also a technology that's used in the geothermal industry. Anyway, it creates additional cracks, making the rock more permeable should the existing hot rock not be in a sufficiently fractured condition to be usable. Now, water is pumped into the below ground reservoir through a supply or an injection well. Hot water, or steam in some cases, is removed from the underground reservoir through a return well, and it can be used to drive a turbine, which in turn drives a generator producing electricity. Water is heated by the geothermal source as it passes through the fractured hot rock reservoir from the injection supply well. The water goes through the hot fractured rock, it gets heated, and then it's harvested through the return well. This system is currently employed in Iceland and other locations throughout the world. Now, our innovative closed Z-group geothermal system, by the way, eliminates the need for such fracking that we talked about. You don't have to frack with our system. You just drill a hole, harvest the heat. Anyway, For today's geothermal systems, via the return well, the heated water is pumped, or in the case of steam, may rise convectively to the surface where its useful thermal energy can be used directly or it can be converted to electrical energy. After using, the water can be recirculated back to the reservoir to mine more heat, or sometimes it's wasted into a watercourse. These fluids can be used for the direct heating of structures, for food processing, or more frequently for the generation of electricity using steam turbines employing what's known as the Rankine cycle, R-A-N-K-I-N-E, the Rankine cycle. Now, depending primarily on the available temperature of the underground source, the type of electric generating plant could be a flash, a dry steam, or a binary plant. Both Lauderdale, Italy, and the Geysers in California are rather rare dry steam fields. In a dry steam field, steam, not heated fluid, shoots up the well and it powers the turbines. Now, what are some of the issues that we have to deal with with geothermal energy? Well, many patents have been issued over the years addressing the toxicity and corrosiveness of geothermal brines, which can be damaging to mechanical equipment, pumps, piping, etc. Now, these patents, considered as a group, clearly demonstrate the types of difficulties that we encounter in attempting to mine geothermal heat energy using in situ, or that's in place, or augmented brines. As mentioned above, geologic formations yielding high temperature rock and or fluids at the more shallow depths are economically attractive candidates for heat mining. Unfortunately, as always, that negative, right? Many, if not most, of these formations are found in tectonically active locations, some of which experience significant faulting along with earthquake activity, and in the case of active volcanoes, may experience flows of molten igneous material, magma, or airborne ash and debris. So applying geothermal technology inappropriately within such a tectonically active area can be unsafe, and from an investment standpoint would probably be characterized as high risk. So careful selection of geothermally productive sites is therefore critical to future exploitation of geothermal energy in any form, and that includes our system. Now, a second issue in some locations is legal. Some geothermally active formations are located within scenic areas or even within national parks. In the U.S. here we have Yellowstone National Park. Now, these areas, they're inviolate under the law. You can't do anything there. For example, per the Geothermal Steam Act of 1970, and as it was amended in 1988, and I'll quote, let me put my goggles on here, quote, certain lands, including lands within units of the national park system, are closed to federal geothermal leasing, unquote. Another significant issue involves direct use of geothermal fluids, as is typical today, all right? These below-ground geothermal fluids, sometimes called brines because of their high mineral content, contain other potential contaminants, sulfur, boron, arsenic, things that we really don't want to come into contact with. Now, such fluids can be highly corrosive, and direct use of those fluids can be damaging to equipment, obviously increasing the operational and maintenance cost of a power plant. This has resulted in several new patents over the years directly related to improving the equipment usability and reliability, and also in the development of processes for removing those contaminants either prior to using or after using. The direct use of brines pumped from geothermal reservoirs is costly from an anti-corrosion standpoint, but perhaps more so due to limitations of renewability, which in some ways becomes the most significant issue regarding future investment in geothermal energy. Underground brine reservoirs can be depleted, the levels can be drawn down, just as groundwater reservoirs do the same thing if we pump too much. Now, underground geothermal reservoirs are renewable if rain continues to fall above the ground and as long as the Earth's core remains hot. However, there are serious limitations on the rate at which these in situ brines can be removed from the reservoir and replenished. If the geothermal brine is removed from the reservoir at rates higher than that at which the reservoir can recharge itself, then the fluid levels within the reservoir, they'll drop over time, resulting in a necessary increase in pumping costs at the least, and in the worst case, a diminishment of the resource for useful purposes entirely. The situation described above has occurred at the geysers in California over the last 2 decades, and it's resulted in less fluid being pumped and less electricity being produced. Now, the geyser circumstance was largely resolved by the world's first wastewater to electricity system. It's called the Southeast Geysers Effluent Pipeline, and it conveys water from Clear Lake and wastewater effluent from the sanitary sewer system from Lake County, both of which are used to replenish the geysers' underground geothermal reservoirs, increasing electric production capacity. Now, the geyser situation was dealt with at significant expense via conveyance from an outside water source located many miles away to replenish the levels using the injection wells. Now, as touched on previously, another relevant art form fractures the hot, dry rock if not sufficiently permeable, and it pumps water down into the rock fractures under very high pressure to be heated and then extracted. Now, this process has been successful, but it raises serious questions regarding the potential long-term environmental effects of artificially injecting large quantities of water into what may historically have been hot, dry rock strata. Such systems are employed in Iceland, and they've been in use for a long period of time, both in generation of electricity and for direct use in heating and food processing. Some researchers, however, feel that hydraulic fracturing, sometimes called fracking, may stimulate earthquake activity in tectonically active areas, tectonically sensitive areas, if you will. I don't know that this has been proven, but it appears to be a concern, and it's something we need to study and learn more about. Again, the Z Group energy system does not use fracturing of the rock in its implementation. So the list of problems historically associated with using and harvesting geothermal energy sources is not a particularly long list, but it is nonetheless a serious list. It poses rather costly solutions. In determining whether a geothermal electric generating plant should be built, and in determining the size of plant to be built, a cost-benefit analysis has to be performed, doesn't it? Now, a major component of this analysis would be estimated future revenue generated through the sales of electricity produced, right, both to pay back the initial capital investment as well as to provide a reasonable dividend to the shareholders. We need a net positive return on investment to make anything viable. Otherwise, we end up subsidizing it at a net negative rate of return, and that's sooner or later not sustainable. Uncertainty regarding future reservoir levels means uncertainty regarding future electricity production, meaning uncertainty regarding future revenue streams, meaning increased investment risk. This increased risk is significant, as capital investments required for a geothermal energy electric producing plant is substantial. Now, one last complication regarding direct use of geothermal brines is environmental. Vaporization of in situ, that's in-place geothermal fluids, employed to drive a steam turbine, and then subsequent condensation back to liquid tends to bring contaminants out of solution. That's what chemists would call it, bringing contaminants out of solution. So once that happens, you got to clean this stuff up. Direct discharge of untreated brine back into the underground reservoir itself or to a local river or lake could result in chemical pollution. And so the treatment of these brines is an additional cost to any plant utilizing those direct brines. Now, the direct discharge of uncooled geothermal brines to a lake or a river can result in, thermal pollution. This is serious, as an increase as small as 4 degrees centigrade within a watercourse can be fatal to fish and harmful to aquatic plants. Some geothermal electricity generating plants re-inject the treated brine back into the underground reservoir. Some plants cool and then waste the treated brine to a local watercourse. In either case, both treatment and cooling of vast quantities of geothermal fluid, I mean, we're talking about 3 tons per megawatt, that's a lot of water, adds significantly to the cost of electricity production by currently applied geothermal technologies. An added cost is always added financial risk, isn't it? Now, given uncertainties of maintaining underground reservoir levels and the high cost of recharging, dropping reservoir levels with pumped surface water, means that it would reduce both investment and power supply risk significantly if there were a way to bypass or eliminate use of geothermal brines altogether. And as you may have already guessed, Z Group Energy has developed such a system, and that system was patented in February of 2013 as U.S. Patent 8381523B2. You can go to our website and look that up. Anyway, the Z Group system is a closed geothermal system, and it eliminates all uses of in situ, that is in place, corrosive or toxic geothermal brines. It eliminates any need for fracking, and the emissions from our system are nothing more than water, H2O. Okay? Our patent is entitled Geothermal Electricity Production Methods and Geothermal Energy Collection Systems, and we'll delve into that Z Group Energy system in a later post. We're not going to do that today. I just wanted to give you some background information on some alternative energy uses and more specifically geothermal energy. If you have any questions regarding the Z Group Energy system, I can be reached at bruce@zgroupenergy.com. You can also message me on any page of our website. You can comment on our Facebook page, Z Group Energy, or you can comment on our YouTube channel, Z Group Energy. Thank you so much for your interest in this very important industry. I appreciate your interest and hope you come back and visit again. Also, in the written text of this blog, I do a video and I also do a written version of it. In the written text version, I have links to all the sources that I mentioned, so you can go see the hyperlinks and go verify any of the information that I provided you. Thank you so much. This is Bruce at Z Group Energy.